What's up? This is Gardy with Clear Life Media, Clear Life Combat. We're here at the Clear Life HQ in League City, Texas. I have a guest here in studio. I'm going to let him introduce himself. We're going to find out everything that he has going on. Hey, how's it going?
How you doing, brother? Cal Diaz. I'm a pro MMA fighter based out of, originally from New Orleans, but been in Houston for about 20 years and got a fight coming up on November 10th for elevating Chris Lopez. So just excited about the opportunity, and thank you guys so much for having me, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. We've worked a lot with Elevate. We love the shows, the events, the promotions just getting bigger and bigger. What is it about Elevate or, working with Chris, or how did that even happen?
Obviously, I know Chris Lopez from being on the regional fight scene, right? He's like, one of the OGs of the game, man. Like, I can remember being at his fight when he fought Derek Age Day. I was also at his fight when he fought Charlie Ontiveros, which I actually thought he won that fight. No offense, Charlie. But yeah, Chris is always a solid guy in terms of just the way he conducted himself in the fight community. And so obviously, once he transitioned to having his own fight promotion, we all kind of supported him just because, he's a good dude. So he originally started off with only just AMI fights. Then the way I got involved was he decided to have a pro show last year. No, actually, it was earlier this year, I think. And we have a mutual friend, one of my coaches, Angel Huerta, kind of a Southside sensei, kind of one of the best guys to ever do it on the regional circuit. And so I was like, hey, man, tell Chris I'm interested in, getting on that show if he's got an opportunity for me. So just reach out to Chris, and we kind of connected from there. So unfortunately, I didn't get to compete on the show because my opponent pulled out with a knee injury a week before the fight. But Chris and I stayed cool, and now we lined up for this other opportunity.
And you have an interesting story and journey for fighting now. I guess let people know, where are you at today? You have a beautiful life, career. How old are you? And then why fight?
My situation is probably a unique situation. So I'm 50 years old. I'm currently on a 3-fight win streak. I'm ranked number 14 in the state at middleweight. But my fight journey, man, it's kind of crazy, brother. So I guess to get to the point, my dad was actually a boxing coach. My parents got divorced when I was about 3 years old, and so I didn't see my dad for a while. But when we reconnected, I would do summers with my dad in St. Louis. But my mother and I lived in New Orleans. So when I went to stay with my dad, he was just about that fight life, brother. Like, that's what it was, man. Most kids, like, you think, for summer you're going to summer camp or you're going to be playing with your buddies. For me, it was basically fight camp. We were every day, me and my brothers, we were in a boxing gym or we were somewhere training. Shout out to Jimmy House Boxing Gym in St. Louis. And, he worked with my cousins. He worked with some other pros. But he was just a guy that was really committed to, fighting. His whole dream in life was that his sons would grow up to be world championship fighters.
Did you like it? Did you enjoy it?
No. So I'm a very honest person, man. I actually hated it. I did not like it. I was a little kind of scrawny, spoiled kid when I went to live with my dad. I was probably about 11, 12 years old, probably weighed like 96 pounds soaking wet. And, I kind of had a somewhat spoiled life by my mom. My mom was a very conservative kind of, very religious, Bible class 3 times a week, do what you're supposed to do kind of person. And so going to live with my dad where it's like you're in a gym with fighters who are, the fighting culture is different. It's not something that normal human beings are going to necessarily feel comfortable in because you're basically constantly around people who are trying to push the art of learning how to hurt other people, right? That's what fighting is. You're trying to develop your mind, your body emotionally to get in a situation where you could hurt someone or potentially be hurt. And so it's a different mentality. So walking into that environment as a child, it can be a little overwhelming, but after a while, man, you spend enough time in it, you kind of get, it's like anything else, brother, you get indoctrinated.
At what point did a switch happen? At 50 years of age, you have to love it, or there's a reason
Yeah.
you're doing it. But at what point did you say, this is something that I'm enjoying, or I want to keep doing?
So that's a crazy story as well. Effectively, what happened was I went to live with my dad at 12, and we started training along with my brother. Shout out to my younger brothers, Carlos Troop and Christian Troop. I have a brother named Christian who was also a pro boxer. He was a pro middleweight for about 5 years. Did well, had a winning record, but I would just train with my dad and my brothers all the time, and I didn't necessarily even understand that I was learning how to fight. Honestly, man, it was just something I just did because I want my dad's approval. Like any kid that, you worship your dad, I just wanted my dad's love and approval. So I didn't realize I could fight. So kind of what happened was in our neighborhood, we lived on a street called Westerhoff. And kind of the rule with my dad was any time any kids wanted to show up and challenge me and my brothers, they could. Just like if you had a problem, you got into any beef with any kids, and my siblings can attest to this. Like my dad, last name is Troop. So if you had a problem with one of the Troop boys, you go downstairs, you go in the front yard, you put on the gloves, and you get in the front yard and you make it happen. So there was a kid who was a bigger kid, an older kid on my block who had kind of, seen me training with my dad and, thought like he could pretty much kick my ass. It was going to be light work. And so he, came and said, he wanted to fight me. So kind of the way it went was I was probably about, I think 14. He was an older kid, like 15, 16, bigger, more physically developed. And I was scared, but we got in the front yard and, my family was there, his family was there, but my dad was there. And because my dad was there, I felt tremendously confident. Like I didn't think I couldn't get hurt. I didn't think anything could go wrong. And so we started boxing, man. And I proceeded to like beat the brakes off this kid. I probably dropped him like 5 or 6 times. And to the point that his dad came outside and was like, no, that's enough. And it was at that moment that the light clicked and I was like, I can really fight. Like this stuff really works. Once my attitude towards it changed, I started to understand the beauty of fighting. Shortly after that, there was a fight between, it's a famous fight now, but between Julio Cesar Chavez and Meldrick Taylor. And it was a fight anybody that's any type of fight fan or boxing fan should look this fight up. But it's like one of the most brutal, tragic fights ever. But it was something that doesn't happen anymore. It was 2 undefeated fighters in their prime. And they fought, man, and it was one of the best fights ever. But I watched that fight through the lens of somebody who appreciated fighting, and I fell in love with it. Fighting is like my dad used to always call it the circle of truth. And the reason I think that is so true is because fighting is going to reveal what's inside of you. You can say whatever you want to say with your mouth, like as far as like, I'm tough, I'm bad, I'm this, I'm that, whether or not you're in shape, whether or not you've been training. When you get in that ring or you get in that cage, people are going to find out what's really inside of you, whether you win or lose, right? There's a lot of guys that they might not win, but they accounted themselves well and they earn respect. So it's just, I just have a passion for it, man. I love it. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. I'm not able to fight because I'm kind of addicted to it.
So training at 12, it wasn't until 38 that you started training for MMA.
Right.
What is it that drove you to even start training that? And was it always the idea to get in the cage or get in the ring, compete?
So I would always, just as like a solace or a safe haven, dabble in fighting gyms, because again, you have to realize like it's something I did with my dad and my brothers as a child, right? It's like any sport. It's like if you play baseball with your dad and your brothers or basketball with your dad and your brothers. For me, a fighting gym, like a real fight gym, is like a safe place. It's like a safe haven. So I would always in my like 20s and 30s periodically get into the gym, get some workouts in and stuff like that. But what actually happened was I was sitting down watching a fight and I was doing what all guys do. I was, armchair quarterbacking, couch quarterbacking, watching a fight. And my wife, shout out to my wife, she was like, I was basically like, oh man, he should have used the jab. And if I would have done this, I would have done that. And my wife was basically like, if you're so good at fighting, why don't you get your fat ass up off the couch and get in shape and go fight? Yeah, it was pretty funny. And at first, I kind of looked at her, but I was like, man, she's right. Like I'm in my late 30s, but I can fight. And if I think I'm that good, I should probably get my ass up and start trying to train and see if I can still fight. And so I originally went to Hank's boxing gym on Elm back when it was being run by Frank Tate. And I connected with Coach Aaron Navarro. He's a really, shout out to Coach Aaron, man. He's a really solid guy, well-known guy in the Houston boxing community. Well, one of my teammates was a lady by the name of Vashawn Living, Lady V. She was a very high-level professional female boxer. So I was training at Hank's, just thinking to come back to boxing. Had no thoughts of doing MMA, but she happened to be dating a guy who was a wrestling coach at Paradigm. So he and I met, and he was like, "Hey, man, you know, you're a little bit older, but I heard you got some hands. You should come by Paradigm and check it out." And I was like, and I obviously I was a fan of MMA, like I had seen the Ultimate Fighters and stuff like that. But I was like, dude, no, all those guys do is take you down, man. They're just gonna take you down and lay on top of you and hold you down and choke you out. But he was like, just come by. So I'll never forget. I went by, and I think I took one class. Obviously, as a boxer, I'm not familiar with MMA, right? Like I'm that idiot that shows up at the MMA gym with like the soccer shin pads that you get from Academy, right? I was that guy because I didn't know anything about the sport. And so, yeah, I ended up basically getting beat up, man, getting my legs kicked, getting taken down, getting beat up. But at that moment, I was kind of hooked. And the reason I was hooked is just as a man, just as a grown man, I don't ever want to feel like there's something that a grown man could do to me and I couldn't defend myself if I needed to, right? So I just kind of got hooked on MMA. So it was crazy. I got a very late start, but I was with a really good group of guys at Paradigm. Shout out to all the guys, that original Paradigm crew, that kind of, took me under their wing, kind of showed me the ropes, and definitely beat me up a lot. I got beat up a lot, but got to kind of, learn some foundational components of MMA and what I needed to do to be successful in MMA based on my attributes, based on my skill set, based on my game. And so from there, I think I had my first amateur fight at 41 years old for Legacy. Shout out to Colin Cantrell. He gave me my first shot at Legacy and ended up winning by like first round knockout. I think I knocked the guy out in like the first minute and a half or something. And after that, I was like hooked.
Whenever your wife saw that you were actually going to go train and then make that transition to actually fight MMA, was there ever any doubt or question? I was like, okay, I know I said this, but she was that inspiration. What was her thoughts behind it all?
For her, I think it was a mixture, like, because I think there's a range of human emotion. I think, my wife and I are best friends, and she knows me. We have a level of honesty in our relationship that would probably make others uncomfortable. So she knows who I am. She knows, the issues I've had with violence. I've gotten into fights, obviously, outside of the cage. When I was younger, I had a very bad temper. So I think for her mindset was, you have this thing where you need to fight. You should probably go explore that and do that in a controlled, like, safe and healthy way, as opposed to like punching some guy in the face at a Chick-fil-A or in the parking lot or something. But I also think there is a natural fear as well, right? Because it's someone you love who could potentially be hurt or be harmed. So I just think there's kind of multiple aspects to it. You know what I mean? But ultimately, she was able to support me. I would say begrudgingly, but I've been doing it so long now that she's completely all in. Like, listen, I'll give you a funny contrast. There's a funny contrast. My first amateur fight, her dad, my father-in-law, who's awesome, comes in town to be there with her. So for me, it's just a fight. like I've been doing this since I was a child. Like for me, getting into a fight is like eating a sandwich. It's like brushing my teeth. Like it's not. It's just a fight. It's like any sport that you did with your dad and brothers when you were a kid, right? But for her, she's like scared, right? So her dad is there and he's trying to calm her down and pull her back in her seat. Fast forward to now, my most recent fight in New Orleans, I went to my hometown and fought for Bayou Fighting Championship. I can hear her in the video and she's like, frame him, throw the knee is there. It's like a totally different person just because she's been through all these fights and been through this process. She understands fighting like far better than the average person, but she just gets it. She just understands. It's just a part of who I am. It's what I have to do. So.
What was it like to go fight in front of like the hometown where you grew up?
Bro, that was absolutely awesome, man. Thank you for asking. So first of all, I want to thank Joanne Kona and Bayou Fighting Championship for the opportunity, but it was crazy. I left New Orleans when I was like, 20, 21 years old. I was a kid, and to go back home and, my oldest son, shout out to my oldest son, Emilio, texted me and he's like, hey, Dad, your picture's on a billboard, right? And he sends me a picture of my face on a billboard in my hometown. And, to go home after all those years and be able to go in the cage, man, and, have a great performance and get another first round finish. It was just surreal, dude. It's just one of those moments in life that like, I couldn't have dreamed it any better. I couldn't have dreamed it any better. I have my son there, my wife there. I had friends that came down. Shout out to my coaches and my team, Cody Freeman, Angel Huerta. It was awesome. I wish I would have got a chance to fight a little longer because I had been in camp for like a long time for this fight, but I'd had like multiple opponents pull out. And that's another thing too. That's a big thing is a lot of guys pull out. So I kind of wanted more cage time, but at the same time, you start hitting guys and they don't want to be there anymore, then I have a responsibility to oblige them. So.
Mm-hmm. Where do you train right now?
So primarily, I fight out of Main Street under crew Bob Perez, but I do. My boxing coach is James Johnson. He's been my longtime boxing coach now for like almost a decade. I also work with Angel Huerta out of Millennium Martial Arts. Southside Sensei, he's like a legend. Shout out to my dude Angel. But yeah, primarily Main Street. I will still go by Paradigm, just to get some grappling in and stuff like that, but primarily Main Street.
So you made your pro debut at PCS1, I believe, right?
Yeah, PCS1. Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry, that's not accurate. I actually made my pro debut for Fury. I ended up losing a decision because I was fat and out of shape and didn't train properly. So that's a story within itself. Like, so obviously I have a natural ability to be able to find guys with shots, right? And because I have power, I knock people out. So, but power is like a blessing and a curse, right? If you don't understand it properly. So for me, because I didn't have the right mindset, I didn't really even train for my pro debut. So this is another thing, right? I never used to train for my fights. I'm just honest, just speaking candidly. I was kind of physically gifted. I had certain like athletic attributes in terms of like speed and power. So for me, I never really trained. All I did was just like spar and lift weights. I would just lift weights and spar and then just show up fight night and expect to knock guys out. So Eric gave me an opportunity. Shout out to Eric Garcia and Fury. And, was a guy, it was my pro debut, was a guy for about 14, 15 fights. But if I'm in shape and I'm the version I'm supposed to be, I get this guy out of there in the first round. But instead, I had a horrible weight cut. I probably dropped like 20 pounds in like a week to make 185. And then like literally midway through the first round, I was gassed. And the rest of the fight, I was just trying to defend myself. And it's not like I got my ass kicked. I couldn't let my hands go. I couldn't really throw any strikes because I was so gassed. So I ended up losing by decision. And that was actually one of the best things that ever happened to me, like in life and in the sport. So effectively what happened was I fought for Eric. I lost that decision. Then I was supposed to fight for Mike Bronzula. Shout out to the homie Mike B, man. He's another local legend in the game. he was doing a show called Hybrid Promotion, where it was like a hybrid MMA boxing show. Um, but COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, everything got shut down. But what it did was it gave me a chance to mature. My wife and I ended up having our son. We have 2 kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old. And trust me, bro, when you have a newborn in your 40s, it's like a totally different experience. Like, kids don't care, man. Kids don't care whether you're sick, whether you had a bad day at work, whether you're tired. Like, you have a responsibility to be there for them and provide and be a father and make sure they have the things they need. And it just forced me to mature in a way that I hadn't before, and it taught me how to do the hard thing. So then when I came back to fighting for PCS, so what happened was, with the PCS opportunity, Paradigm was originally my home gym. Well, Reed and Abigail Segler decided that they were going to do a fight promotion. So Colin Wright reached out to me and was like, hey, we're going to have a show, blah, blah, blah. Would you want to come back? I was like, bro, yes, I would love an opportunity to come back. But this time I had a completely different mentality, which is I'm going to train. I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to be the best version of myself, even at, 47 years old. And we'll see what happens. And so obviously, the results speak for themselves. I came back. I was in shape. They were able to find this guy, Rain Wells, who stepped in, and, I had an opponent, and I was ready to fight.
Yeah. What's the goal for this fight next year and beyond? What's success look like for you?
I think for me right now, I'm currently on a 3-fight win streak, 3 straight wins, 3 straight finishes, number 14 in the state. Planning to fight again in November. If I can win that fight, I think I'd get to the top 10. The goal for me, man, is to finish this year with a nice streak and put myself in a position next year to be able to fight for a belt. If I were able to win a belt, whether it's in Texas or Louisiana, I've done the research, I'd be the oldest guy in those states to ever win a belt in professional MMA. Fighting is like life. Fighting is a journey, and everybody's on their own individual journey. Like, for me, I'm not trying to make it to the UFC, right? That's not my goal. My goal is just to be able to say, hey, I was able to force myself to be the best version of myself. I was in shape. I worked hard. I bust my ass, and I was the best fighter I can be. And based on that fighter, this is how far I was able to take it. And just to be able to say that I was a champion, man, that would mean a lot to me. After that, I'll probably shut it down because this is a young man's sport. And trust me, when you wake up in the morning at 50 years old, the day after practice, you're feeling everything. So, yeah.
Can you remind everybody who you're fighting for, when the date is, and then how can they follow along?
Cal Diaz. You can follow me on Instagram at Ninth Wonder MMA. I'll be fighting for Elevate on November 10th. Shout out to Elevate. Shout out to Chris Lopez. Definitely go follow Elevate Fighting Promotions. And yeah, November 10th, man, we're going to try to make it 4 in a row and try to get another finish and move closer to that goal of being a champ.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Man, if anything, I'd just like to say thank you to my coaches and my team, Coach Johnson, Krubar Perez at Main Street, my guy Cody Freeman, the homie Angel Huerta. Gotta give shout out to my boy Angel, man. That guy's a character. My brother Tim Butte, 369 Sports. He does my strength and conditioning. My beautiful wife Louise Diaz, and just all my family and friends and everybody that's continued to support me on this journey. And I would just encourage people, man, like it's never too late to be who you want to be, right? Age is just a number and a mindset. If you're still walking upright and you're still drawing breath, there's an opportunity for you to pursue your goals, right? Stop making all the excuses of why you can't get something done and take it one step at a time and put yourself in a position to realize your goals.
Thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, brother.
We're going to get you back in studio and I think follow along on the journey.
Dude, it's going to be cool, man. I think, so I'll tell you, I'll make it a real quick thing. Like, it's a funny thing. I didn't get into it to, like, try to inspire people. But literally after every fight that I'll have some guys coming up to me in like their early or mid 40s, and they're like, dude, I wanted to, do jiu-jitsu for the longest, or man, I wanted to run a half marathon, or dude, I want to take up boxing. I'm like, brother, like, make it happen. But the funny part about it is their wives are always standing behind them, giving me the evil eye, like, you mother. I'm like, hey, don't get mad at me. But yeah, man, I think hopefully, some people can find it inspirational, whatever you're trying to accomplish. Like, age is just a number.
Cool. I love it.
All right, thank you, brother.
This is Gardy with Clear Life Media, Clear Life Combat. Make sure y'all follow along. Cal Diaz. Y'all be blessed.